From a professional soccer career to becoming a driving force in the mortgage industry, Brian Covey has shown what it takes to find your competitive edge. Get off the sidelines and get in the game. Find your competitive edge with Brian Covey.
What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Brian Covey Show, which, by the way, for our fellow listeners that have been with us a while, we're going to be rebranding to Finding Your Competitive Edge. So today's going to tie into that because my friend here, you guys are going to want to buckle up. You're going to want to get a pen and paper, and you're probably going to want to slow your heart rate down before you listen because we're going to get you pretty energized up. Craig Siegel, I can't say enough good things about you, my friend, is when we first met, your energy, the way you show up on stage, the way you show up on social is it's just infectious and contagious. And so I know everybody's going to get not only value and things they can add into their life and actually take action, but they're going to feel it. They're going to understand what you've been through to get to the other side and also realize in their own life, they're just one decision away. Once they break through that wall that's in front of them, there is greatness on the other side. So if you haven't learned about Craig, I'm not going to go into the long bio, but I love your CLS community. You were talking about before, you've got a new book coming out. You do coaching, you do speaking, you've mentored. I've seen you speak on stages and bring people standing up and they're just jamming. You hang out with some pretty high flyers. Your show is one of the few shows, I will admit, you have some of the best guests. And I tune in regularly because not just how you orchestrate the conversation, but you bring value with the guests and you take it very seriously. So my friend, without further ado, welcome.
Thank you so much, brother. So that's what it feels like to be on the receiving end of one of those iconic introductions. I receive all that. Thank you so much. Genuinely, all those words penetrate my soul. You know how much love and respect I have for you. It was instant chemistry the moment you and I met. I'm excited to be here. I know we've been trying to put this together for a while, but we both had some crazy schedules. Let's get nuts today.
Dude, let's do it. And I love that too, because this is what I share with people. When you find people in your life that have that energy and they make you want to be a better person, they encourage you to become that better version of yourself. Surround yourself with them. And the opposite is true. So Craig's one of those. Let's jump into that because look, I'm always curious about guys like that because you'll see people show up and they either have it or they don't have the energy. It's real or it's not real. For you in your life, where did that begin to where you started to show up as Craig? And we'll dive into some of the things you do on the side, but did you make a decision? Is that just how you're wired? Is that from your childhood? Where did that start for you?
I always felt like I was underachieving in the sense that I knew I was here for a big reason, but I was unable to put it together. I was a little bit lost in the wilderness. After college, I went to Wall Street and I simultaneously picked up personal development at the same time, which was a game changer for my world. And Wall Street was cool for a while. I had a ton of success from a monetary standpoint. But as I always like to say, as you learn through life, making money doesn't necessarily equal success. If you ask me today, it's how happy you are and how big of an impact you make. And so I had this built up bottled energy and I translated it to Wall Street. We did well. It was fun until it wasn't. But ultimately, I just felt a little bit empty, right? Like I was a gladiator in the wrong arena. And I had this energy, but I was never really the full Craig, like you just asked about it. And it's a great question. And so I found myself in a dark place a few years ago. I got out of a toxic relationship, which can always be challenging. My best friend in the world, my pops, my dad had gotten diagnosed with cancer. I had my own business on Wall Street. I pivoted and started something else. And although lucrative, it felt like a job. I was not having any fun. In fact, I was really unhappy and I was miserable. And I was always looking for something else. And I thought Wall Street was it for a while. I realized it wasn't. It was just short term. I started running a bunch of marathons, which was really cool. I don't know if I found running or running found me, but it was at that moment that I realized that I am limitless, just like you are, just like we all are, right? When we tap into that and we remove those limitations, because I went from really having no experience running, I always lifted weights, to running 4 marathons that first year. And even just a month ago, ran a 3:39 marathon in Chicago, which for a civilian is pretty good, all things considered, I say very humbly. I wasn't looking to become a professional runner. I was looking for something. Fast forward the pandemic, bang, talk about a global awakening, right? And it's so interesting to look back now, Brian, like some people took advantage of the opportunity to reassess. A lot of people did not. And I think we're seeing that now. I had a moment in that pandemic, in the beginning specifically, where I shut down my office. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't have like a structured, organized work schedule. I couldn't work if I wanted to. And I just had that reflection time. And I was like, am I happy? Not even close. And it occurred to me right then and there that the worst thing that I can do right now is when this lockdown ends, go back to a job, to not making a dent in the universe, to underachieving. And so I've made myself available in that moment, and I elevated my frequency because I've been studying personal development, and I started to have a spiritual moment. I received creative divine downloads. It was like, of course, I'm obsessed with personal development, but what if it's not just a passion? What if it's my assignment? And I combined that with my ability to communicate effectively. I went all in. There was no guarantee, but the one guarantee that I could make is that if I didn't take the shot, now that I finally established some clarity, I regret it for the rest of my life. I went all in. The rest is history. The brand exploded over the last 2 years. I sold Wall Street for good. This is it. So to answer your question, and I wanted to give you some context, this is really the first time when I turned 35 2 years ago that the world has ever seen the actual, real, 100% raw, organic, unfiltered, authentic Craig Siegel. And it's exciting.
Bro, I am so excited to unpack that. And I love that you framed up your story for people to have an understanding. And there's more that we're going to go into that I know. And they hear about you running these marathons. They hear about you starting personal development. They hear about you leaving Wall Street. But I think it's the details within that, because people will be able to relate their own story. They're going to find that's me. I was Craig in that moment. And either I made the decision or not. So let's go back a little bit. I love your fascination with personal development, because I'm the same, right? Like avid book reader. I love listening to podcasts. Like I would call it, I'm obsessed, right? Like the same way I was when I played soccer. Like I couldn't get enough of it. And when you find that, what were some of the early actions you started to take? And I'm thinking about those people, Craig, that are going, man, I want to do this, but like, where do I start? How do I get in that personal development game if I'm not in it?
Yeah. So for me, a great question. For me, I always struggled with confidence. Like I was confident with certain things, but other things I would doubt myself, a bit of imposter syndrome. And then when I studied personal development, I started to realize that wherever you're at right now is not a life sentence. You can actually develop confidence. It's a skill. You don't have to be born with it. And so I started being very intentional with the thoughts that I allowed to take up real estate inside my mind. And I had realized from becoming aware that most of my thoughts had been negative without even realizing it, programmed from my subconscious from an early age.
Oh, yeah.
And once I became familiar with that, I started to be strategic with the ones that I allowed to take up real estate. And I started to eject the ones that didn't serve me anymore. And so by feeding myself, I am worthy, I can do this, I am resourceful, I am determined, I started to create new beliefs. Like I may not have experience with the CLS thing, but I'm creative, resourceful, and driven enough to figure it out. And then I started to take inspired action. And then I was available, right? And so the first and foremost, I think it's really important for someone to develop a confidence or at least a strong self-belief, because that will be your foundation, even more important than the strategies and tactics. Because if you have all the strategies in the world, how to make $1 million, but you don't really believe that it's possible for you, you'll never be able to surpass your own self-worth. But if your self-worth continues to expand, then whatever that you can do and accomplish can expand as well. So first and foremost, I would start working on your self-belief.
So rewind that. Anybody that's listening, rewind that back, because it took me years to figure that formula out. I was the guy that went, read the books, tried all the tactics, tried the strategies, tried to become that person. And that to me almost falls in the, not so much fake it till you make it, but I wasn't doing the inner work. And like you said, like your subconscious, when you realize how powerful that is and that you can reprogram it. I love that you started there, because for many people, they live the same life year after year and don't understand why 5-10 years goes by and they're no different. Their capacity is not increased. They don't have the self-belief and the confidence to believe they're worthy of it. And I always think of when you're saying those mantras, it's like, why not me is one that I've clung to lately. When I look at people that have had tremendous success or where I see myself in 5 years, those of you listening, why not you? And so, Craig, I would ask you, is you started to make that shift out of Wall Street. The last 2 years you have exploded. I've personally watched it. You've done the work. What were you thinking in that moment of when you made the shift and you're like, I'm going all in? What were you thinking and how did you navigate that? Whether it was goals, working on your beliefs, to start to move you towards what you really wanted?
So once I started to get clarity, right, I started to become more and more available. And I think where most people struggle at this moment is most people start to think about what could go wrong. What happens if I show up and I look stupid? Or what happens if somebody judges me? Or what happens if I reach out for someone to be a guest on my podcast and they say no? Or what happens if I don't have any experience on stage? What I challenge the audience to do right now, and this is tangible, so if you take nothing else, please take this. Challenge yourself for 24 hours straight. Instead of thinking about what can go wrong, start challenging yourself to think about what can go right with every single scenario. And don't be afraid to be a little bit delusionally optimistic. And then by thinking about what can go right, now all of a sudden you're available for good thoughts, great ideas, putting yourself out there, not being afraid to look silly. And you're no longer available for OCD or negative thoughts or imposter syndrome. And if you make that commitment to the 24 hours, my assumption is that after 24 hours is up and you have my blessing and permission to start being realistic again or thinking about what can go wrong, you're never going to want to go down that road ever again because you just opened up a whole new life for yourself. So just focusing on what can go right gave me a ton of confidence. It kind of divorced from the outcome. As I like to say, marry the process, divorce the outcome. I released the expectations and I just started being super optimistic. But make no mistake about it, I was also beating on my craft. I was getting better. I was learning how to speak. I was building my confidence. I'm learning just like you every day. I know a lot of people associate me with being physically fit, you as well. But one thing that people probably don't realize, me and you, priority number one is being mentally fit. And that will never stop until my last day. So I'm working on that every single day. And then I'm thinking about what can go right. And then from there, the universe likes that. I was super available. I became a vibrational match for the abundance out there. I had no more interference. Oh, what happens if you look silly? Or what happens if you stutter? I just wasn't available for that. And I made that commitment to myself and I started to show up and great things began to happen.
Wow. So I love this because
I love you,
where you took me back to is a teenager and my dad being a psychologist and learning the power of visualization. One of the first rules he taught me was you're going to envision everything, Brian, that you're going to do right because you get to make the rules. You're going to envision the game. You're going to make every play. It's going to be perfect. You're going to make the play, right? Like just start to play the movie as if it all went your way. And then we started to work in what if things don't go my way? What if things don't happen? So I'm curious, have you ever used visualization? Does that tie into that for you?
I love visualization, brother. And I'm so happy that you asked. This is very powerful for the audience listening. I always like to give tangible tools, right? Because a lot of people hear information, but it's only potential power unless you start to apply it. So what me and Brian are doing here today is we're giving you guys things to actually facilitate immediately. Visualization is really powerful. Like, for example, when I started running marathons, I started to visualize crossing the finish line, looking up at the clock and seeing a specific time, what that would feel like. And now all of a sudden, those visualizations, they didn't feel like foreign territory anymore. I started to become familiar with that. It's almost like the future gratitude exercise, like being grateful for things that didn't even happen yet. Now all of a sudden, your body doesn't know the difference. It starts to be familiar with those feelings. They don't know if it actually happened or it happened in your head. So for anyone out there that's listening, and some of these big goals and dreams that you have for 2023, which is right around the corner, if they feel so far away, make them closer. Take a second, start to picture what that would actually look like if you were on stage in front of 70,000 people, if you wrote a book, if you got a promotion at your job, if you were available for the right partner in a relationship, what would that actually look like? And now all of a sudden, that's how you begin to manifest things because you start to play it out in your head and then you become used to it. And now you're on that frequency and you become a match to those things. Short answer, visualization is awesome and I'm all about it.
Let's jump back in though, because man, I think about this in life is, so you're visualizing all the things that could go right. Well, hey, when things don't go right, they go wrong. I'm sure that's happened to you. I mean, I think about your stories that I know, even injuries leading up to the marathons, things that you've shared that I have seen, setbacks. Let's talk about that because there's probably some people right now facing either job loss, they're in the job they don't enjoy. How do they rebound from these setbacks that they're having or have recently had?
Yeah, setbacks are a part of life, especially when you're taking big swings, right? if you're going to take big swings at life, which I highly suggest everybody does, be prepared to take some big misses. It's just par for the course. But how do you handle those? They can be advantageous for you. So some of the setbacks that Brian's referring to is before I was going to run the Chicago Marathon a year ago, I was at a speaking engagement. I got injured. It was misdiagnosed and I had a tumor in my foot. So I had to get surgery. But that kind of brought me centered because I couldn't run for a little bit. I started to really dive into this quantum stuff, this energy fields and this science stuff that I had, if I'm being honest, was skeptical of because it was beyond my senses. And because I had that moment to reassess, because I had a little bit extra time because I wasn't running, I dove into this quantum stuff and I never left. I mean, this is the stuff that makes the difference. And now I look back because you can't really connect the dots looking forward, as Steve Jobs said, only backwards. I know that that injury happened for me. So I could take a minute and start studying this stuff and change everything. Secondly, a couple months back, walking in New York City, I was involved in a hit and run. A car hit me speeding and then went through 2 red lights, gone. And ultimately, that shook me up. Physically, I was relatively unscathed, which is a miracle, but not a coincidence. But mentally, it shook me up a little bit. But I know that also happened for me. And it helped me become even more mindful and present in every single thing that I do. Treat every interview, every activity like it's a Super Bowl. So you just have to have the mindset that everything that happens is happening for you. And if it looks scary at the time, like let's just say you got fired or you got laid off, even though it's tough and might feel unnatural, just know that this is happening to protect and propel you to something greater. And if you have that mindset, you can never be broken. You can never be too stressed out because you have faith, number one, faith, and also faith in the process that this is happening to elevate you. For anyone out there that's going through some stuff right now, what can you control? What steps can you take in the right direction? Is it possible that this is happening so that you can discover this isn't the right job for me? This doesn't make me happy. Maybe because I'm so miserable, it's giving me an opportunity to think, what am I passionate about? And when you have that mindset, reinvention is waiting right around the corner, but you have to be available for it.
Man. So I know we have been on the same wavelength with that, is when you even shift the mindset and belief that it's happening for me, regardless of what it is. We've all had stuff happen, and moving from being a victim to saying, cool, what's this trying to teach me? What's next? What do I control? And I love when you start to frame it up that way, you move forward. I know one of the things you mentioned earlier, I want to go into a little deeper of the physical fitness, which actually ties into mental fitness. For me, they are aligned. Like both of them for me, as much of my working out is physical as it has mental. Like even this morning, part of that workout pushed me, and I like to go in the pain cave, as I call it. I want to quit. Let's be real. There's a moment I like the workouts that I'm right on the edge because it reminds me why I'm doing it. It reminds me that I'm strong enough to do it. And so talk to me about your journey because, you know, both of us, we prioritize that because in the seasons of my life I was not the best me. I was not even close to a good me. I was bad. I was not a good Brian. So talk to me about how that integrates, why it's important, and for people maybe listening, how they can start to incorporate that in, the importance of it.
Yeah, I think all the greats, the legends, yourself included, you have a plan, right? Like we can only get so much inspiration from certain things. So we're always looking to create other ways to elevate our frequency and our vibe. And for me, running marathons is just that. And it sounds like for you, working out and putting yourself through voluntary hell is just that, because you create a situation where you have to actually go through hell, but on your own terms. And then when you don't die and you actually go through it and you accomplish it, that's where all the real growth occurs on the other side. Not only that, but just getting through it shows that you can persevere anything. And then you can use that as a point of reference for other situations in business, or God forbid you get divorced or whatever the case may be. It creates a new point of reference. If I could do this, I could do that. And then obviously the growth being on the other side of taking uncomfortable action. There's so many benefits for out there. I think everybody should have some sort of fitness goal in their life. And again, it's not just to look good. Like that was the old Craig when I seek validation. It's just to have something in the calendar that challenges you. It's just another dimension to add to make you a little bit more dynamic, multifaceted. Add that to the repertoire. As you push through that, that gives you confidence in other areas of life. So for anyone right now that doesn't have big fitness goals, I'm not saying you got to run an Ironman or a marathon or anything like that, but you should have something that presents an opportunity for growth by challenging you.
I love that. I mean, think about who you could become if you had a challenge every day, that you knew what it was, you had a game plan, you showed up, you gave it your best, and you conquered it. You do that every day, like you said. Do it for the next 24 hours. Do it again tomorrow. Do it again the next day. You become that person that you envision. And what I have learned through my experience, and I've seen you do this even with the marathons, when you got hit by the car, I'm thinking, man, how would I respond to that? I mean, think about how many people would be down and out for months going, woe is me, right? Like they're out of the game. When you voluntarily put yourself there, you've already put yourself ahead of, I would say, 90% of your competition.
True.
It's in the game. Yeah. So let's pivot a little bit about your community, because I want to make sure people understand. We've dropped some nuggets. I love these shows because we don't get to cover everything, but we cover enough to kind of whet the appetite. Tell you a little bit about what has made Craig successful. It makes him unique, because I do think you're unique, man. Like I listen to you every time we connect, I learn something and I'm inspired that then I need to go take action. And I think being part of a community, the communities I'm a part of and masterminds have absolutely changed my life, right? So let's talk about yours, because I know you're changing lives with your CLS community. Let's tell them a little bit about that so they understand how they could possibly plug in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like when I first reinvented myself to start the CLS thing, I was a gladiator in a whole new arena, and I had to put my ego aside, and I had to really hone in on and own that I don't know what I don't know. And so I started putting myself in rooms with people that weren't necessarily better than me, but were a little further ahead. And it was so contagious. I started to think differently. I started to act differently. My strategies went up, my level of awareness. And so because it was so valuable to me, I created my own community, the CLS membership. And I do many other things like masterminds, intensives, coaching, consulting, all that stuff. But when I created the membership, I wanted the idea for it to be a no-brainer. So we meet 3 Wednesdays a month. We go crazy, removing limiting beliefs, entrepreneurship, building a personal brand, all that stuff. We bring on big guest speakers. We have a private group and chat where everybody networks, supports each other, does business with each other. It's funny, we'll have big celebrities come in as like a speaker, and they'll hit me up after and they'll say, Craig, I've never seen a community where everybody is so selfless and supportive of each other, like lifting each other up and so forth. And that was the intention. I wanted to create something a little bit different. So it's just been the most beautiful thing. It's growing rapidly. We have 500 people in there now. It's invite only and it's exclusive, but it's certainly something I'm really passionate about. Whether it's the CLS membership or something else, I couldn't agree with Brian more. Being in a room like that challenges you, but also around a support system is the cheat code to accelerate your growth, in my opinion.
So I will second that. I think back 5 years ago, before I really intentionally started doing that, I was barely growing. Let's be real. Like it was the same year after year. So if you're listening to Craig and I and you're going, hey, I want to do something different in my life in 2023. I want to become the best mom, dad, father, brother, whatever it is, business leader, all the things that you have goals and dreams. You wake up every day, you know what they are. You don't know how to connect the dots. This is the one accelerator beyond everything. You're still going to do the work. You're still going to do the personal development. You're going to read books, listen to podcasts. But if you can get in rooms with people that are the right people, and I love what you said, Craig, I always think of it that way too, is they're just a little bit ahead of me. They have information I've not yet received. They've done things that I want to do, and maybe they can help me avoid some of the pitfalls. Those people in your life will transform it. And guess what? The people I've found, like yourself, that are successful and living out their purpose, they are givers. They want to help other people because in a way, that's what fills their tank, right? That's what I think about. So if you're going to do anything, take the information we've shared with you, but plug into a community. Get into rooms next year that you actually invest your time, energy, effort, and money and change your life. Because that cheat code, as you called it, changed my life. I mean, now you know this, like that's how we met. Guys, I'm telling you, this is the one. If you're like, man, I want to do it. Where do I start? That's the way. And we'll put the links for your community, Craig, so they can see what's there. I know you've got your text community. I'm pretty excited about your book coming out, dude. Let's touch on that. You want to tease them with a little bit of what's happening there?
Yeah, for sure. So we spoke about visualization, right? I'm big on whiteboarding and journaling and setting the intentions for the year. And I'm really goal oriented. So I had a book deal on the whiteboard, but it wasn't my priority at the moment. I was doing many other things. I'm speaking. I was in Portugal a month ago, speaking in front of 70,000, building the community, the podcast sponsorships, all that stuff. So it's not that I forgot about the book. It just wasn't a priority. But because I'm just so available right now and I'm such a match, as it turned out, we were approached by a bunch of the major publishing houses, specifically Wiley, which just had a home run with Ed Milet's book. They were kind of looking for the next Ed Milet, so to speak. And I'm not saying I'm the next Ed Milet, but I'm not saying I'm not. And so it just came to fruition where we had some talks and we signed a deal. And so we're working on the book right now. It'll be coming out in spring 2023, and it's called The Reinvention Formula. And why I'm so big on reinvention is because I think everybody in some capacity could relate to being unfulfilled or unhappy in some capacity of life. And what I want everybody to know is that not something, but everything can change in a relatively short amount of time when you become aligned and you become available. And I know this because I have contrast. I was one way for 35 years. And once I decided to commit, to be intentional and then surrender and flow, everything changed. I mean, over the last 2 years, we've quantum leaped. And I know that that's possible for anybody in anything. Entrepreneurship, business, relationships, anything that you want to do. And so I'm writing a book on it, and it's going to be very tangible tools, techniques, and strategies. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my background story, and I'm just so excited. I'm creating a hybrid that I don't think the world has really seen yet in regards to it, and I put in quotations, a self-help book, but I'm excited, and it'll be coming to a bookstore near you, spring 2023.
Boom. Well, I know we're going to put the links and all that in there. And I know you guys have been blessed like I have today. I got one final question for you before we wrap. And I think about this. It may have been Ed, since you brought up Milet. I think Ed may have asked this on one of his shows. But I've often found through my journey, there were things that I believed that once I started to go through that transformation process, you talked about the last 2 years, that I got new information and I no longer believe. And they were breakthroughs for me because I had a belief that was limiting my potential, limiting how I showed up. Is there anything in the last year that you've gone through that you're like, man, I used to believe this. This is what I was told. This is what I was taught. I got new information, or I changed how I approached my life?
Yeah, I love the question. It's deep and it's thought-provoking. In regards to me, just where I'm at in my journey, and of course, I have the mentality like I've never arrived because I know there's so much more work to do specifically on myself, and I'm never complacent. But there were moments in the beginning of the year where I didn't think I was ready to speak internationally or in front of 70,000 people or to have a big book deal. Maybe I had to self-publish and stuff like that. And when I really got quiet with myself and I said, was I born with those beliefs, or did I somehow pick them up and think that they were appropriate? And the reality was it was the latter. In regards to those beliefs, I was inside the matrix, and I unplugged myself and I started looking at it a little differently. I'm like, wait a minute. If when I get on stage in front of one person or 70,000, if I can move that human being to take inspired action, to feel some type of way, who's to say that I can't do that on the biggest scale? I'm just adding value. And so I started to remove the constraints that I had, and I started to show up with a little bit higher of a vibration. And the great thing about vibration is we're in a vibrational universe. Everything vibrates. Everything is magnetic. And you don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. So if you're not loving the results that you're getting, it's just feedback. And you can actually improve your frequency by being strategic with your thoughts, and then you can vibe higher. And any specific limitations that you have, you can then go ahead and remove, and then you become more available for all the other abundance that's there. So those are two things specifically. And the great news is this is something that anybody can apply to anything that they're currently dealing with.
Bro, that is so profound, and one of those that I hope everybody caught. And it's one of those moments that I go back as we review and we listen. you want to rewind that back and write out as you're going through it. Listen to it a few times. And then I would challenge you to write out, what are the limiting beliefs you have? Because you know them. I know for myself, I know which ones I have. I know exactly which ones I hold on to because it keeps me in my comfort zone. It keeps me in a safe place. What if, just put it out there, consider this. What if you took those 1 or 2 or 3 that you write down and going into next year, you take action towards those and you change your beliefs about yourself. You change your frequency and your vibration, as Craig talked about, and you get yourself in rooms with people that are thinking bigger and maybe just further down the road that you are, that can help you. What's possible, right? Bro, I appreciate you so much because I will tell you, you're a unique dude. The people that get to spend time with you pick that up. But I mean that genuinely in the sense of how you show up in that frequency and vibration right away. We had not met, but when we met in person, we had connected on social. I knew right away, that's somebody I want in my life. Whatever time or, in person we get, this is somebody, I'm telling you guys, you want to connect up with. We'll put all of Craig's social links. And I'm proud of you, brother, because I know the work you're doing. I'm on the same journey. And I know there's days that we don't feel like showing up and doing this, or we hit roadblocks, like you said, and all that. And you have transformed who you are, and you're making a massive impact on other people. So I don't want you to miss the impact that you are making is going to be significant. I believe God's called that. And I just kind of speak that over you as to, you've got big things ahead of you, my friend. And I'm excited just to be part of that journey in some way with you and supporting you.
Thank you so much, brother. It just those words literally just penetrated my heart and my soul. I feel the same about you. I'm honored to know you. Best part about this dynamic is it's just the beginning of the friendship. I had a lot of fun today. I know the audience did as well. Thank you so much for having me, genuinely.
Brother, it's been awesome. Guys, we're going to put the links in here. Those of you that were on the LinkedIn Live, we'll put links so you can immediately go take action. And if you're listening to the show on the podcast forums, then we'll make sure we've got the links in there as well. So, Craig, thank you. And guys, what I would say, take something away from what you've heard today. Don't just be inspired and motivated and have your feelings moved. Put an action behind it. And my ask would be, if we helped you in some way take an action, let us know. Leave us a comment, leave us a review, something there so we can know what resonated, how we were able to help you, and anything we can do along your journey. That's why we created the show. We're here to inspire, but also to help you take action to be your best. So, Craig, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Guys, we will see you on the next episode. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave those comments, as that helps us know how we're able to serve you best on the next one. See you guys.